First question, how can recent advancement in GIS technology be leveraged to enhance evaluation practices and outcome? So this is the question that we will try to unpack in this session this afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, those who are in the room and those who are joining us online. I'm very excited for this session. We will be discussing transforming evaluation, harnessing geographical information systems and technology. I think it was on the first session today in the plenary when one of the speakers mentioned that as evaluators, we should be seeking to harness different forms of technologies or different forms of data. And one of them is what we are presenting today. Part of that new forms of data is GIS, and we will touch base on other forms of data gathering and data collection in evaluation. So first, let me introduce to you the speakers for this afternoon. Perfect. Joining us online is Dr. Anupam Anand. He is a Senior Evaluation Officer of the Independent Evaluation Office of the Global Environmental Facility. He will kick off the discussion on a talk on how to use GIS in measuring the criteria of relevance, drawing from his extensive experience in conducting environmental-related evaluations. Also joining us online is Dr. Toshiyuki Yokota. He is a Principal Evaluation Specialist with the Independent Evaluation Office Department of the Asian Development Bank. He will be providing examples on the use of GIS in measuring effectiveness, stemming from the experience of evaluation of ADB's road and infrastructure project. On that table over there, we have Engineer Yongfeng Liu. He is the Deputy General Manager and Senior Engineer of Guangdong International Engineering Consulting Company. He will further unpack on how GIS has been used in measuring effectiveness with his experience in school construction here in China. To my left over here, we have Ms. Virginia Ziulu. She's a data scientist with the Independent Evaluation Group of the World Bank. She will provide her experience and lessons learned from using GIS and machine learning to aid in measuring effectiveness of World Bank projects and making sure that the evaluation is done in an efficient manner. And to her left, we have Mr. Serdar Bariev. He is a Senior Evaluation Officer with the Office of Evaluation of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. He will give us some insight on how evaluation can be used to measure sustainability and effectiveness using open source GIS tools developed by FAO that are being currently used in the field of agriculture, forestry, and fisheries. And then we have Mr. Tinashe Madamombe. He is a PhD candidate of Durban University of Technology. He will share his experience in using LiDAR technology and also usher us into a discussion on the future of GIS and similar technologies on how we can apply them in evaluation. My name is Harvey Garcia. I'm a Senior Evaluation Specialist with the Independent Evaluation Office of UNDP. And I will give you snippets in terms of how in our office we've used GIS to measure the criteria of coherence. And I will also be your moderator for this afternoon. As you can see, as evaluation practitioners, all of us here in the room, we like to move in frameworks. That's why our whole session is designed on the evaluation criteria and how GIS feeds into this evaluation criteria. So we hope to have 1 or 2 questions each and after the presentation made by the panelists. And then at the end of the discussion, the panel presentation, we hope to have a 15-minute question and answer. If you have a burning question, please ask them. If ever we are not able to answer your question, please post your question in the WOVA application, and then we'll make sure that one of us will be answering that question. Before we start the session, please make sure your phones are in silent mode. And also, all of the speakers right now have contributed to an information packet. So this handout contains links to scientific papers that we ourselves authored or used. It contains tools. It contains data sources. So if you are interested in receiving this packet, please reply to the WOVA application of this session with your email, and we will send them directly to you. So you could do that now, you could do it in the middle, you could do it later. But please, if you want this packet, make sure you put your email so we could establish contact with you. Thank you so much. Okay, so Dr. Anupam will start the presentation. Can we slide through?
Thank you, Harvey.
Anupam, can you hear us?
Yes.
Perfect. Can you see
loud
the
and
screen?
clear. Yes, I can see the
Okay.
screen.
Please tell me to move on to the next slide when ready. Go ahead.
So thank you, Harvey, and good evening and good morning, all of you. Sorry I couldn't be there in person, but technology has allowed us to connect, so I'm very grateful for that. Next slide, please. So today I'm going to talk about how we use geospatial analysis and remote sensing to answer the question on relevance. And the question of relevance is directly related to question of targeting. So if we had an intervention in the wrong place, as an evaluator, we would question the relevance of that intervention. So I'll give you 2 examples of how we have used geospatial analysis to question or to answer the question on relevance. So what you see here on the screen are the locations of protected areas supported by the Global Environment Facility. So Global Environment Facility, as you know, is one of the financial mechanism for major UN Environmental Convention that includes the Convention on Biological Diversity, and now we know that the Kunming-Montreal agreement or framework on biological diversity is active. So far, Jeff has supported around 5,000 protected areas all across the world. That includes China, as you can see the map here. So the question for the evaluators was, are these interventions relevant? So from biodiversity perspective, the interventions would be relevant if they are trying to protect the most important and most biodiverse endemic species or species that are important from biodiversity perspective. So what we did in this analysis was to overlay these locations with locations where scientists have told us that those locations are important from biodiversity perspective. So those are the locations where endemic species or charismatic animals, flagship animals, or wildlife live. Next slide, please. So this is what we did. And so we used multiple criteria because there are different definitions of biodiversity importance. And here you can see we overlaid those locations with multiple criterias. Next slide, please. And you can see the results that we found that 58% of these locations are key biodiversity area. So key biodiversity area are scientifically defined as the areas where key biodiversity resides. Apart from that, we also saw that there are 31% of these locations have international designation, which includes UNESCO biosphere reserves or Ramsar sites. So that's also very important from biological perspective. And then we also found there are 11% that had national importance. So it might be important from national perspective, might be a cultural site, might be a site that is revered in a particular country. So this helped us understand that Jeff is intervening in the right places. So many of these protected areas could be paper parks, and there are scientific literature that have pointed out that, but not in case of the GF intervention that we evaluated. Next slide, please. Here's another example, and this is about conflict and environment. So when we wanted to look into conflict, there were a lot of questions whether why as an environmental organization, why are we looking in conflict? And this map shows the relevance of looking into conflict. And what you actually see here are the location of the Jeff projects overlaid on conflict fatality. And you'll see that there is a direct correlation between the Jeff interventions and their locations and the conflict. And we all know that the areas which are very, very rich in biodiversity, such as the Congo Basin or in Colombia or other places which are known for their biological diversity, have also protracted conflict. So this kind of justified looking into the conflict more closely and how it affects the project outcome. Next slide, please. And as you can see here, that we not only use geospatial analysis, but also other streams of evidence. So the point here is that geospatial analysis complements other kind of traditional evaluation methods, and this becomes more important when we are working in isolated areas or areas of conflict and fragility where it is very difficult to get information. Next slide, please. So here, in this example, we are looking into a conflict hotspot, and as you can see here, that we wanted to know the relevance, and we also wanted to know the other criteria, but I would focus on relevance. We wanted to focus whether the interventions are relevant to the drivers of environmental degradation in this area, and which is illegal gold mining, which feeds into the conflict. So we went on the site, but we also wanted to assess how big is the problem and whether the intervention is proportionate to the problem. Next slide, please. So as you can see, we have a drone here, and this not only gives us an evidence, a visual evidence, but this also feeds into a machine learning algorithm where you can classify how much is the extent of illegal mining and whether we are intervening in the right places or we are far away from the areas which have actually the trouble. Next slide, please. So here we use radar data because it's always cloudy, so it can, so GIS data can also help you look through the clouds, look through the bad weather, and with this we're able to quantify how much is illegal mining, and we were able to look into whether we are intervening in the right place or whether the interventions even make sense. Next slide, please. So here you see it's very interesting And one of the person that we have interviewed told us that it is the peace that brings deforestation. And this might sound paradoxical, but you can see that during conflict, there is much less deforestation, and it's during the negotiation and post conflict situation when the floodgates are open and everything is up for capturing and degradation. So that's where the intervention is needed most. So especially for environmental intervention, you need to come in when there is a peace, where negotiations are happening. During conflict, people are worried about their life. They do not go out as much to degrade the environment. So that was the lesson, and we were able to quantify how much of deforestation and degradation has happened across the timeline, and whether our interventions are at the right place, or where they should be, or where we would get the maximum impact. Next slide, please. So with those two examples, I would also like to share that we published a book on the conflict and fragility and how to evaluate the environmental interventions in conflict and fragility. And then we have a body of work on how to use geospatial and remote sensing for and within evaluation. So these are all available on the JEF-IO website. So I'll encourage you to go through this. Next slide, please. Yeah. With that, I would like to thank you all for listening, and over to you, Harvey.
Thank you so much, Anupam, Dr. Anupam. First, thank you for being awake at 4 in the morning right now. He's in DC. So that's very brave of you, and thank you so much for contributing. I would like to have my colleague here in a hot seat and have her also explain her experience in tackling relevance on some of the country program evaluations of the World Bank.
Thank you, Harvey. So yes, so we have been piloting an approach using geospatial analysis for one of our products, which is the country program evaluations, or CPEs. So in this case, what we're trying to ascertain is the relevance of targeting from a subnational perspective. So we think of this analysis as comprising two dimensions. One is the level of support, and the other is the level of need. In terms of level of support, we typically, in our case, proxy this by looking at the support provided by the World Bank, be it in terms of number of projects or the monetary amount provided. And by level of need, we use external data sources, and these can vary. So we look at access to basic services, for example. And for this, we use a variety of data sources. Could be remote sensing data, could be census and survey data. And we try to look as well as 2 time periods. So we normally do CPEs for a 10-year period, so we split that in 2 periods. So we can also see the change in this targeting effort within the period. So this is an approach that's generalizable to any country, but the specific data sets that we use depend on each country based on data availability and based as well on the specific focus of each of these evaluations.
Thank you so much. So now let me give you some snippets on how we were using GIS in terms of measuring the criteria of coherence in my office in UNDP Evaluation Office. In UNDP, we measure internal coherence at the program level by measuring the synergies of collections of projects. As in our office, I'm part of this country program evaluation section where we measure the presence of UNDP. We measure the effectiveness of UNDP in a country for the last 4 or 5 years. So we look into how projects are connected or how projects synergize to deliver a common or bigger results, bigger than the projects themselves. And then we also look at external coherence. External coherence, we look at how are the UNDP projects connected to the results of the other development actors or the results of the government. So I will give you two examples. So we conducted a country program evaluation of Cambodia. We were in Cambodia, so they had a large issues on landmines. And UNDP has been supporting the country to clear landmines, especially in the border of Cambodia and Thailand. In collaboration with the government, UNDP would remove landmines. They would develop strategies to rehabilitate areas that are declared mine-free. And they would also develop some strategies for the people that are living in that area. So as we were doing a program evaluation, the landmine program was only one of the 60 projects involved in the program. As you can see, this on the right are some statistics in terms of the effect of landmines in Cambodia since I think in the 90s or 80s. So what did we find out using GIS in terms of analyzing coherence? Using GIS, we just did a simple overlay. So first, you can see the map over here to your left. The green parts over there, those are the areas that was cleared by UNDP and the government of Cambodia of landmines. And then we overlaid the, I think it's blue, no, or purple? Blue. Sorry, 25% colorblind here. So the blue part is where UNDP has presence in terms of its projects. So you can see the circles. The bigger the circles in the blue part is the more number of projects and the more funding that province is receiving from UNDP. But what does that tell us? So what we did is another step in terms of analysis. We did several calculations to see if the project has elements contributing to economic empowerment. So we could say if the province on the north has a lot of projects, but most of those projects were not contributing to economic livelihood, most of them probably would be in environment. So using sort of like this simple overlay analysis, we were able to sort of like unpack and we were able to emphasize the finding that indeed UNDP was working in areas that are relevant for demining. So in areas where there were a lot of mines, UNDP was there and UNDP was working. But UNDP was not connecting its livelihood activities or economic empowerment activities to the area that was cleared. Of course, all of this information could be presented in a table. But having it presented in a map like this, presenting to a stakeholder group like you, gives it a more emphasis and a call for action. And that's exactly what we received when we presented the information and we presented the finding to the stakeholders and the government. So second example, but not on GIS. So this is where we used social network analysis. So in Iraq, during the war on ISIS, millions of Iraqis were displaced. Between 2014 to 2022, when the humanitarian phase was closed, multiple development actors assisted the humanitarian response, stabilization, and recovery in Iraq. This included UNDP. In 2023, just last year, I led an evaluation in Iraq covering the program of UNDP from 2020 to 2024. During this time, still the movement in Iraq was very difficult. We had to use armored vehicles. We had to be in secured facility. So we had limited movement and limited time to go around to measure what is the effect of UNDP's work in Iraq. So we decided we should use social network analysis to aid us in our evaluation design and in our analysis. So what is social network analysis? So you can see here below, this is an example of a network analysis. What you can see on the outside, the names on the outside are all the provinces of Iraq, and the inside are all of the organizations working in Iraq during that time. I'll give you another example of the same social network analysis in Iraq, and I'll unpack it. So this is another example of a social network analysis in Iraq that we used, and we were using small to medium-sized data. We're not using the big data like Twitter. So small to medium-sized data, it's only about 4,000 to 8,000 rows in an Excel. So if you can imagine an Excel sheet, 8,000 rows. That's sort of like a small to medium-sized data. So that's how we use, and we acquired it from the 4W matrix of OCHA. Using that data, we were able to develop this social network analysis with the thematic areas of assistance. So you can see the big words: child protection, general protection, gender violence, health, WASH, education. These are all thematic areas within the humanitarian response in Iraq. And the small words that you could see everywhere are all of the actors working in that network. So, and then you could see the arrows pointing to the contribution. So each of those actors are contributing to that specific theme. So in this analysis with social network analysis, you can see there are thicker arrows. The thicker the arrows is the more number of projects and the more resources being given by the organization to that specific theme. You could see on the top, the thickest one is SWEDO, NPA, and HALO. So these are organizations contributing the most to the theme of general protection. And using social network analysis, we can see where UNDP is placed. I'll just point out. Anyone who could see UNDP gets a prize? Where? The prize is free entrance to all of the sessions tomorrow. Where is UNDP? In the middle, here. So we can see how UNDP is situated in the whole network of humanitarian, stabilization, and development actors in Iraq. And what does this tells us? It tells us two things. First, it gives us the visualization tool of social network analysis, or the visualization function of a social network analysis. If I show you an 8,000 row Excel, would you be able to absorb it immediately in 5 minutes? If I show you this, would you be able to give me something in terms of what can you observe from this figure? This is a representation of 8,000 rows in an Excel. So that's a big difference of using a social network analysis in an evaluation. It helps you visualize your data so you could make some plans in terms of conducting the evaluation. For example, I have limited time in Iraq and I want to contact the organization that has the most connection in Iraq that could represent the different networks. So I would go to the most connected organization here, which in this case was IOM and UNHCR. By having to talk to those two organizations, they represent the secondary and tertiary information of the other organizations in their network. So that's one. Another thing that it would show you is it gives you a bird's eye view of the whole data set, and it can give you a possible flow of information. So I will also provide this in the handouts, the program that I am using to develop this social network analysis. It's very easy. What do you call this? You could learn it in probably less than a week. It's called Gephi. And it can provide you different models, and you can assign weights, and you could identify the flow of information from one node. A point is called the node to the other. So that's it for me for the criteria of coherence. I actually also now would want to put one of my colleagues, Toshi, online to also share his experience in measuring coherence in his evaluations in ADB. Toshi, over to you.
Hi, thank you, Harvey. I just want to quickly share. I wonder, do you have a presentation? Okay, not this one. Okay, let me just briefly explain, verbally explain. So I digitized 163 projects financed by ADB from 2010 to 2022. And this is for the transport sector-wide evaluation. And I overlap ADB project location with on the map of Asian highway network. So Asian highway network is the policy of UNSCAP. So UNSCAP has promoted Asian highway network for a long time. So ADB supporting 5 sub-regions. One is South Asia, the other is East Asia, Southeast Asia, Pacific region, and the Central West Asia. I found it was very interesting. So overlap information say only Central West Asia show very strong coherence with Asian highway network. So most of ADB support in Central and West Asia region was along the Asian highway network. So major national highway might be deteriorated in those countries. The other possible reason is that most countries in the Central and West Asian region were part of the former Soviet Union, and their economic system still need a good connection beyond the country border. This might be the good reason, but we don't know yet. However, so GIS data do not tell us reason, but such data analysis give us very relevant evaluation question for further evaluation. So by thinking why only Central Asia shows strong coherence or such as like that. So visualization is advantage to see or to find out any next step. Thank you. I stop there.
Thank you, Toshi. We will keep you online here because you're going to be presenting the next one. So whenever you're ready, so you have the floor on your topic on effectiveness.
Yeah, thank you, Harvey. Today, I present the application of GIS for evaluation of effectiveness. Next slide, please. So in my study, I used nighttime light as a proxy of economic growth. So many academic researchers reported nighttime light show a strong correlation with economic growth. Nighttime light has been captured by satellite, and many institutions such as NASA share the latest and historical data of nighttime light for free. Next slide, please. The figures show daytime and nighttime satellite imagery of the state highway in India financed by ADB. Buffer zone was set to monitor changes in project area. So my study set 10 kilometers of buffer zone to monitor what are changes of nighttime light or land use. After project completion, nighttime light increased by 34% per year, while the growth included other factors contributing to the growth. Next slide, please. So therefore, for evaluation, it is necessary to calculate contribution of the project. This section shows an example of the evaluation study which assessed the contribution of project to economic growth. Next slide, please. So many researchers use difference in difference. So DID originated in the field of econometrics and used a quasi experimental design that make use of data from treatment and control group to obtain an appropriate counterfactor to estimate causal effect. Next slide, please. I evaluated effectiveness of the National Highway project in Armenia, financed by ADB. 2 road sections were completed in 2015, nearby the capital of Yerevan. Next slide, please. The slide shows the control group for DID analysis. These are to obtain appropriate counterfactor to estimate causal effect. The control roads representing without project scenario. These had a similar portfolio in terms of road type and location. So these are identified based on consultation with various stakeholders, including local people, the government staff, the staff of other international organizations, and ADB project team. Next slide, please. Figures show nighttime ride in 2015, just after the project completion, and 2019, after 4 years from the project completion, and the major major increase in the nighttime ride. Next slide, please. The annual growth rate of project area higher than the control group by 3.8%. It can be interpreted the attribution of project to the economic growth is about 40%. The result was triangulated by feedback from local people. The local people said greater availability of transport services increased their access to market and social service institutions and created employment opportunities. Okay, next slide, please. This section triangulates of the GIS analysis with other economic analysis. Next slide, please. I evaluated effectiveness of 33 projects in 16 countries with the same methodology. The study calculated the average attribution of 33 projects to economic growth. Next slide, please. The average growth rate of 33 projects after project completion was 11%, against the 6% of the control group. The estimated DID by road improvement was 5%. It can be translated as the average attribution of 33 projects to economic growth was about 45%. Next slide, please. So triangulation is a crucial step to validate findings and is one of common practices in evaluation because it is an important process to ensure objectivity. It also provides holistic understanding of contribution to the growth. I compare with the effectiveness assessed by nighttime ride with conventional economic analysis using EIRRs calculated in the relevant ADB project completion report. EIRR in the transport sector normally measure benefit enjoyed by road users and administrators, such as time saving, reduction in vehicle operation costs, and saving in the road maintenance costs. By contrast, nighttime ride, a proxy for economic growth, local economic growth, represents benefit of local people. The benefit of travelers and residents are different, but those are two sides of the same coin. In the figure, economic analysis with EIRR and impact analysis with nighttime ride show positive correlation, while the relation was not statistically significant yet. Next slide, please. I would like to quickly share one more example. It is evaluation of effectiveness of Jaipur metro project in India. Next slide, please. I want to share only conclusion. So it was estimated that project area grew by 17% per year from 2020 to 2022 after project completion. And the contribution of project to the growth is about 62%. Next slide, please. For this evaluation, I triangulated the result with street view, before and after. My findings are two. Number one, structural change of building did not happen in the 2 years after project completion. It would happen in the middle or long term in Jaipur. Number two, the reason of increased nighttime light was due to increase in people's activity using more electricity rather than structural change near the station. Therefore, the area near the station has more potential for economic growth by further urbanization and population growth. Next slide, please. So evidence is here and there. So AI, particularly GIS, help us connect those dots to find out more comprehensive findings. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Toshi. And I was really excited when you're presenting because in your studies or in your evaluation, you encountered words that is very rare in evaluation, the word attribution. You know, it's very rare for us to really specifically attribute a result to the program. Most of us, I don't know if I might be speaking for myself, we only sometimes just at the level of contribution, but not to that specific attribution, and which is really nice when you integrate GIS. So we'll move to the next presenter, Engineer Yongfeng.
Okay, thank you, Harry. Four. Yes. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to give the speech today. My name is Liu Yongfeng, the Deputy General Manager of Guangdong International Engineering Consulting Corporation. Well, my topic is the application of GIS in schools construction. And I want to share the significant potential and value of GIS in micro-level perspective, especially in the project decision-making and also the social economic evaluation. Okay, next slide. Well, first of all, the case study is one school. The name is the Zhengcheng School of South China Normal University. It's located in Zhengcheng, Guangzhou, in the South China. Well, and we are the consulting engineer for this project and the local government. So we keep an eye on Zhengcheng School's development. This school positioned as a national model school for primary and junior students. So this position is very important. As you know, the Chinese people want to send their children to model school, and also they will buy their property and houses near the school. So that we can see the influence. Okay, and we finished the feasibility study in 2020, and the school began to enroll students from 2022. Okay, next slide. As we know, there are 4 aspects that JIPS was in the project decision making. They are construction necessity, project planning compliance, construction situation, and school scale. And school scale is very important. It decides how much money we spend in this project. So, we define two circles around the school within 1 kilometer and 5 kilometers. That means we can walk in 10 minutes in 1 kilometers, and we can go to the school by bus in 15 minutes. So, and these circles also covers 2 different administrations regions, but we can gather the census degree, the census data very quickly in the JIPS platform. For example, the total population and the age distribution. And then we can assess the construction conditions around the school, including the infrastructure, the water supply, and potential building demolition. And next slide, please. And before the construction of the school, we will discuss the planning compliance. And the site of this school was previous the garden land use. By overlay the satellite image with the urban planning maps, it generates inspection reports of planning compliance automatically. In this, and by this result, we will help the government to apply to the City Planning Bureau to adjust the land use to administration and public service land use for the school. Moreover, this report also tells us the civil infrastructure status, including the water supply and electricity very clearly, making the project site decision-making more efficient. And in page number 5, next slide, we will turn to the school scale calculation. Well, this is very important because we gather the census data we mentioned. So we can calculate the census data of current students from the JIS platform and project the school age children population for the last decades by mathematical models. And this mathematical model is developed by our team. So we can calculate the results by this formula. Current data on school age population for enrollment minus the current number of students equals the current school capacity. Finally, we also can reach a conclusion of school capacities of 4,020 students and calculate the building area is 97,000 square meters. Next slide. And next, we can focus on how JIPS was on the project evaluation. Well, that's different from the decision making in the feasibility study. But we can know the school is under operation for 2 years. In these 2 years, we can evaluate the performance of the school and whether the goals in feasibility study were met. And as you know, the school has 1,350 students. And comparing satellite image from 2020 to 2023, we find a lot of roads, parks, and communities were built near the school. More important, the school stimulates local economy. Within 700 meters radius of the school, there are 6 communities were built, about 1,200 residents, 1,200 families, and 3,400 people move in, create more than 500 new jobs, and 270 million US dollar investment in the surrounding area. Next slide, please. After the completion of the school and the data regarding of the building scale and the numbers of students were put in the city street system, and this data continue to play an important role in the decision making for future prospects. So, to the future, there will be more application scenarios based on the JIPs created in project evaluation, urban governance, and social service. And it will become more intelligent, and we hope will be more convenient and efficient. Okay, that's all of my presentation, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Engineer. That is very impressive. If that kind of data or like that kind of evidence could get integrated into policy and governance, that would be something that is really, showing evidence for decision makers. Okay, next. Okay, so I'll hand it over to my colleague over here, Virginia, for her presentation.
Thank you. So in this segment, I will argue that image data can be instrumental in making evaluations more efficient. To demonstrate this, I will walk you through a specific case study of a geospatial analysis using different type of image data and different methodologies that we conducted at the independent evaluation group of the World Bank Group. I chose this example specifically as we faced many challenges when trying to evaluate this project, and we were able to address many of these challenges by using different types of image data, which I think will make it an interesting case study. Next slide. So specifically, the example that I wanted to share with you is the evaluation of an urban development project in Bathore. That's a small area located near Tirana, the capital of Albania. We face specific issues, as I mentioned, when trying to identify suitable data to evaluate this project and to contribute to our analysis. The first challenge that we faced was spatial. The area that targeted by this project was very small, around 13 hectares, which made it virtually impossible to find any existing data set which would be available at that granular level of disaggregation. Even finding the specific boundaries of the area supported by the bank was a challenge in itself and required multiple consultations with the original team of the project. The second challenge that we faced was a temporal one. This was a legacy project that was completed between 1998 and 2005. So not only we had to find data sources that covered a very small area, but we also had to find longitudinal data that covered the period of the original project. Next slide. So I will discuss with you two specific parts of the analysis, with the caveat that this is a small part of the work that we did, and we also use other quantitative and qualitative methods. The first part I wanted to share with you is a modeling of land cover change in the area and the period of interest. So as you can see on the slides, to accomplish this, we use optical satellite images. In this case, specifically, these are Landsat images, which are images from NASA that are publicly available. Spatially, these images have a resolution of 30 meters for most of the bands and 15 meters for the panchromatic band. Importantly, from a temporal perspective, these images have a revisit frequency of 16 days, which means that the satellite will take a photo of the same location every 16 days. So what we did for our analysis was select images with a year frequency between 1999 and 2020. And essentially, we built our own time series data based on this. The way these images were created was using a machine learning model, and more specific, a supervised machine learning model. So the way this model works is that we were interested in modeling 4 specific land cover classes, which are the different colors that you can see on the map. So build-up, green areas, water, and agriculture. So because this is a supervised model, we identified specific pixels in each of the images that we knew corresponded to each of the class. And we trained a model that can learn to identify the characteristics of these pixels and each of the class. And the objective of this approach is to then apply it to the remaining pixels. Just to keep in mind, we're talking about thousands of pixels per images, so doing this manually would be impractical and virtually extremely time-consuming. So what we achieve with this is a model that is able to predict for each of the images that we selected the pixel corresponding to each of these 4 classes. So visually, you can see the change in land cover across this time period, and there is an area delineated in black, which is a specific area of the analysis. So visually itself is quite powerful, and you can see mostly at the beginning it was mostly an agricultural area, and it switched to mostly an urban or built-up area. That in itself is quite powerful, and it tells a story. But further than that, this can be quantified more specifically as well. So we can calculate the specific area for each of these classes across these images. So for example, we estimated 56% of the area of interest in 1999 to be urban, while this percentage increased to 85% in 2010. The second part of this analysis that I wanted to share with you is an illustration of how we use street view images to derive fine-grained urban indicators. So street view photos refer to digital photos, such as those taken with digital cameras or smartphones. So these are not images captured by powerful satellites, but are images that any of us could capture. And there are even repositories where there is a large volume of these images available. For example, Mapillary, Flickr, or Google Street View. In our case, we use images from Mapillary, and we extracted over 5,000 images for our area of interest. And because the metadata of each of these images have the specific latitude and longitude from where the image was captured, so we could precisely map the point to where the image was captured. The critical part here is to have a substantial number of images in order to derive meaningful indicators. So the way we address this is by overlaying a grid of 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer cells across our area of interest, and to make sure we had sufficient number of images in each cell of the grid. The way we analyze the image is using a computer vision methodology. For those that are not familiar with this, computer vision is a field of artificial intelligence that focuses on the study of images and tries to derive patterns from images. So specifically, we use an algorithm called semantic segmentation. So you can see an example on the slide. So the top 3 slides are actual images of the area of Bathore extracted from Mapillary. The images below are the result of the semantic segmentation algorithm. What this does is greatly simplifies the image into specific classes. So you will see the same colors corresponding to same features. So the vegetation is marked as green, the streets are marked as yellow, and so forth. So what this allows us to do is to extract specific information, and there is a great body of literature where different type of indicators are extracted from these images. In our case, we were interested in two specific indicators, which were greenness and sky view, as these were related to the health and well-being. So you can see the results on the map at the bottom of the slides. So essentially the way we derive this is greenness is defined as a ratio of the pixels classified as green on the segmented images, as a ratio of the total pixels on the image. And similarly, the sky view indicator is a ratio using the blue pixels as opposed to the green pixels. So what I wanted to highlight from these two examples is first that there is a wealth of publicly available image data that can be incorporated into evaluations, including both remote sensing data such as satellite images or the street view photos that I mentioned before. There are several advantages that we have seen in IHE while using this type of image data. First, the possibility of doing very granular analysis, but also the possibility of doing longitudinal analysis, which is sometimes difficult to make with other data sources at the granular level, and the possibility of doing comparative analysis by standardizing the same type of indicators and doing comparison across different cities or different areas of interest. Well, I thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that was interesting.
Thank you so much, Virginia. I can see it like very applicable. Like I'm imagining it being applied in my country, in the Philippines, where people like to take selfies a lot. Can you imagine evaluation through selfies? That's very applicable. Next one, I'll give the mic to Serdar, who will discuss about sustainability and the use of GIS and effectiveness.
Thank you. Okay, I will share examples of using geospatial data in evaluations undertaken by the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO for short. Next slide. So FAO, you may be familiar with this organization and its initiative in agriculture and food security areas, striving to deliver results that help achieve the world free of hunger and poverty. Among the diverse initiatives, you may also be familiar with the well-known FAO flagship product, which is Global Forest Resource Assessments, and which are conducted using the geospatial tools. So FAO, in collaboration with global partners, and one of them NASA, National Aeronautic and Space Administration of USA, has developed a special geospatial tool to support these global forest and land cover assessments, and developed this tool based on Google Earth Engine, which is called Collect Earth Online. And this is actually a snapshot of its first page. It allows users to track land use and vegetation changes anywhere in the world, providing free access to satellite imageries acquired over the past 40 years. So, we have used this as an Office of Evaluation, leveraging this potential to generate data for evaluation analysis. We have mainly focused on the use of its main feature, a normalized difference vegetation index, which translates satellite imageries into numerical values, helping to assess vegetation cover, its density, and in some instances, its health as well. We still call it as experiments, but we have been able to use it effectively and successfully in various evaluations, be it rehabilitation of irrigation networks, ecosystems and landscapes, restorations, action against desertification, fisheries projects even, assessing the coastal areas, restorations, and assessing project results in areas which are otherwise not accessible due to security or climatic conditions. I will be mentioning a few examples of those evaluations. So one is the large program, Action Against Desertification, which was designed to tackle detrimental social, economic, and environmental impacts of land degradation in Haiti, Fiji, Burkina Faso, Ethiopia, Gambia, Niger, you see, Nigeria, and Senegal, so quite diverse regions. This was implemented also over a quite extensive period from 2014. Evaluation of large irrigation and livelihoods rehabilitation program in Afghanistan, and the Coastal Fisheries Initiative and its regional projects in West Africa, such as mangroves management rehabilitation programs for developing the fisheries projects. Next, please. So, as you see, this demonstrates that the tool can be used for various types of interventions. And speaking about answering evaluation questions about sustainability, we found that the Collect Earth tool was very useful in combining assessments of physical expansion of irrigation networks or farms activities, along with assessing the changes in vegetation and quality of agricultural activities. This was example of Afghanistan, a very large irrigation rehabilitation program which had its successes, and it's also generated some lessons learned for the future. Vegetation index calculations help us also to generate historical data for projects, facilitating assessment of their influence on vegetation change patterns over time. The tool can also help with climate impact assessment, to some extent, of course. In evaluating our flagship program on action against desertification, we experimented with using geospatial data while developing also equations and estimates to help assess changes in carbon emissions that come from landscapes and ecosystems improvements, or degradation, if that was the case. My colleague Toshi, in his presentation a few minutes ago, mentioned the importance of triangulation. And to enhance accuracy and reliability of this analysis using only geospatial tools, we have also triangulated geospatial data by local observations using GIS experts and ensuring photographs of either networks or agricultural farms and actual crops and different other activities. So this has a great potential towards building a foundation for systematic and longer-term monitoring over years and better evaluation of results in future. Just a note for decision makers that there is a potential for using spatial modeling when geospatial data can be used in conjunction with models like crop simulation models that use historical data to project the patterns of crop production, as well as effects of different agricultural practices, including sustainable practices on yields and water use efficiency and use of other natural resources over the long term. I would also probably, next slide, speak about a little bit about implications for efficiency. My colleague just mentioned it in her presentation, Virginia. In evaluating results of our programs, Collect Earth tool enabled us to collect geospatial data from 607 interventions across the globe. You would imagine that it would be hardly possible with evaluation teams doing it at the same time over a very short period of evaluation. So this number speaks by itself about the efficiency of this method in facilitating the evaluation analysis. This tool, as I mentioned before, also helped us to overcome the challenges of accessing project sites due to security issues, let's say in Yemen or Afghanistan, where you simply cannot go and visit the projects, but you can actually get the satellite imagery and get the historical perspective of the developments in that area. In all instances, the use of Collect Earth tool helped evaluation teams to meet their objectives more efficiently and more swiftly, in a very timely manner, while maintaining the high quality of the data being collected. And just to complete, I would say tool is easily accessible to anyone. Of course, you need to study it and learn how to use it, and perhaps also talk to those who are standing behind maintaining this tool online. And this is web-based, free of charge, requires no installation, so can be used by national institutions for monitoring, research, and evaluation purposes. The link is below. The website also includes manuals and useful instructions on how to use it. But of course, I mean, you are free to contact the actual main hosts of this tool to ask any questions as well. So, as I wanted to say, what I wanted to say is that this tool can be used for ensuring responsive evaluations for government, for inclusiveness, and for the future. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Serdar. And our last panelist is Tinashe. Please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to present on the future of GIS and evaluation. So basically, in this case, I'm going to just do a synopsis of what they've already covered by my predecessors, particularly regarding emerging technologies. So I'm not going to choke you with the information redundancy. I'm going to do it very fast. Next slide. Right. One of the most indispensable emerging technology or tools that are shaping the landscape of evaluation processes is big data and AI. As you have noticed or witnessed by the presentation of the previous presenters, you can see that there is an increase in availability and accessibility of geospatial data, be it from open sources or from that is moderate to high resolution Earth observation data, large data sets. So what does that mean for evaluators? This means evaluators are going to increase their reliance on using big data tools to process and to analyze large data sets, as well as to assess the impact of programs and policies in real time. So we are also carrying out an ambitious program in Zimbabwe of using low Earth orbit satellite technology to boost collection of evaluation data within the food security program. So we intend to use machine learning to analyze satellite images to detect changes in crop yield and predict yield harvest, like that has just been mentioned by Seda when he was presenting. Next slide. Another key advancement is the application of real-time data collection. This is a very transformative approach that is changing the landscape of evaluation. Like I've just indicated, that using low Earth orbit satellites and drones and the Internet of Things sensors, we will be able to collect data in real time and also even to access places that are not accessible. This then broadens the scope of evaluation in areas that face challenges, be it from infrastructure and geographical constraints. Next slide. So this is an illustration of one of the projects that we are carrying out, we are executing in Zimbabwe. As you can see, those are sensors that are placed in a field, and they continuously feed data to our GIS system minute by minute. And this will allow us to monitor and evaluate the effectiveness of this farming practice in real time. Next slide. Another thing that is also exciting and is also revolutionizing the evaluation landscape is the use of cloud-based GIS solutions. As we all know, ladies and gentlemen, cloud computing is democratizing access to GIS tools and data. So it is also enabling collaboration between evaluators and sharing data in real time, which is improving the capacity of GIS in evaluation. Next slide. 3D, the utilization of 3D, three-dimensional mapping and digital twins is one of emerging technology that is putting the predictive capacity of evaluators to a whole new level. Because evaluators can now simulate, create digital virtual replicas of even an entire ecosystem or an urban area. And then they will simulate scenarios so that they can then evaluate their potential outcome before they implement or make changes in the real world. So we also intend to do that. We want to simulate different farming activities and also evaluate them to see their effectiveness. Next slide. I'm sure you have noticed that there is now a drift towards use of unconventional data sources like Virginia has just mentioned, the use of street view maps. So there's now increase in use of geotagged social data media posts. And this will then enable evaluators to get an unprecedented insights of public perceptions about a certain intervention or even to assess social dynamics. Next slide. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue to embrace these exciting technologies, we should not lose sight to our ethical responsibilities. These advancements are also associated with new challenges. So basically, there's need for evaluators to ensure that there's adherence to ethical consideration surrounding the issue of data privacy and avoiding algorithm bias and make sure that GIS evaluation is inclusive and equitable in terms of accessing those free tools. Next slide. By and large, GIS also, the evaluation landscape is also going to witness an increase in integration of other new technologies such as 5G network technology for faster data transmission in order to enhance accuracy, timeliness, and also richness of spatial data. So what it means, these technologies are also going to make to enable evaluators to produce comprehensive and timely evaluations. Next slide. To conclude, so as we continue to embrace these technologies, for us to realize the full potential of the benefits of these emerging technologies, there's need to significantly invest in technology, also in robust data management systems, as well as capacity building. Next slide. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time and attention.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tinashe, and thank you for beautifully wrapping the whole session. I couldn't compete with that one, so thank you so much. That is good. We have 11 minutes for questions. Let's start. Please. Can you please introduce your name, your organization, where you're coming from?
And if you don't mind, I don't want to stand with my back. Maybe I just stand here, yeah. Thank you very much. My name is Aziza Umarova. I work for the government of Uzbekistan. I'm head of delivery unit at the Agency for Strategic Reforms and the President. And it was a really great pleasure to be here at this session because I really loved what everyone presented. Thank you so much for your sharing. I would like to say that we are also doing a lot on GIS. We do it for planning purposes, but also for evaluation of the programs that are funded from the state budget. Specifically, we are using GIS for modeling where to build new schools, and we are joining data on the demographics, migration, the land use, and other things. We're also using data for public health issues on the cancer control program among women. We're using GIS data on the drinking water as well. And actually, it led us to understand that there is a huge issue with the quality of data when you collect, because once you have a good data, you can do fantastic modeling, and we've tried to do at least 5 or 6 of them. The problem is whether the data is structured at the entry level, and that's how it led us to initiate, and I'm leading the working group in the government now on developing new law on public data governance. We will specifically talk about the criteria for metadata, structured data, what it should look like. So I have very specific proposal, and maybe if it's possible to also feed this, please, as a moderator. And I spent 9 years of my life with UNDP, so I would say as a former UNDP colleague as well. We should really make sure that the data is part of the design of any program before it even starts. Was it a development program, or it's state fund program, or it's loan, there should be the set of data with a prescribed structure of the data before any dollar is released for implementation. It will lead us to way more effective evaluation afterwards, but it also will make sure that this data is really collected as we go. I think it would be, in my way, good fit for purpose and also cost-effective solution for everyone who is funding. Thank you so much. And I also would like to invite, if I can just make a short advertisement, I'm speaking tomorrow in the afternoon in the session on digital technologies, and I will present a snippet of our dashboard that we've done with GIS data in Uzbekistan on schools, on water, on healthcare. Please do come. And I also would like to propose us as a testing ground for anyone who is interested in data analytics. I have in my team data scientists, I have GIS specialists. Please work with us. We will be happy to partner on anything related to social sectors with anyone in this room. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I had a question for Virginia. I am a data scientist at 3IE, and we're working on a project where we're trying to identify wetlands to measure vegetation in wetlands. And I was wondering if you have any insight on segmentation for something like wetlands versus forests versus other lands where you don't have a lot of built-up area. Has this come across in your experience, or if you have any thoughts on how to approach that, where the surrounding areas are more similar?
Yeah, so we actually work on something quite similar to that. So I'm also happy to discuss separately if you want. But just to give you a few pointers, obviously will depend on the extent of the area that you're looking at. The analysis that we did was quite specific. The main challenge that we had is what's called mixed pixels. So those specific pixels that are very hard to separate between one class and the other. And we did a lot of in-depth analysis looking into higher resolution satellite data. So for that, you can use even publicly available ones from Google Earth, for example, in order to create a very precise training set and comparing different models. So in the case that I looked into, I think we tested 10 different models, and we mapped specifically how the models were performing on the mixed pixels, and that made a big difference at the end on arriving to a classification that was accurate. And as a final step, we use validation, as I was saying, with very high resolution satellite image. And that also gave us another layer of confidence that what our model predicted was not only accurate in terms of the prediction that can be calculated within the model, but also by looking at data. Another thing I would mention, depending, of course, in the country or the specific area you're working at, is we talk with experts more from the subject matter perspective. Could be that different areas they are represented a bit different or show differently on the data, just as to be sure that what we were looking at is exactly what we should be looking at, and we're not just making our own conclusions that might not be accurate. But I'm happy to discuss more separately if you would like.
Ada? So we'll collect at least the 3 questions, and then we'll respond. So.
Thank you so much. Great presentations. I'm Ghada Sus, and I work in UNDP Regional Office of Arab States. So GIS is an excellent tool, but it's usually not undertaken or recommended in the terms of reference, and it's not followed by evaluators. So what do you recommend so that this is included in upcoming evaluations? And what do you recommend in case of budget? How can we budget for using such tools? Thank you.
Thank you for your great presentation. I work from a consulting company in Guangdong Province, China, and my team focus on the feasibility study and the project assessment and evaluation. I have some questions for Dr. Yogota. In your presentation, you determined the contribution of certain projects by using 2 groups of data. One is from the project area, and the other group of data is from the control group. And you define the 2 groups, they have to be in the same conditions. So the first question is, how to define same condition? What needs to be considered when you choosing a control group? And that's the first question. And the second is, were there any interference factors in your analysis and how to deal with them? Thank you very much.
Hello, yeah. I'm Abhinash from India. I work for the National Evaluation Office, Delhi. So my question is, like, one is kind of at conceptual level, and the second one is more kind of question. So first is like GIS, using GIS in evaluation. So it is more of a kind of supplemental role it can perform. That's what I think. Can, like, traditional model of evaluation, we cannot supplant that. GIS can actually supplement. In most of your presentation, you say this is one of the aspects. There are other quantitative and qualitative analysis which went into coming to such kind of conclusion, because contribution or attribution is very hard to actually get into. It requires much in-depth analysis. So that's at conceptual level. Second is like at our office, we are trying to build some systems to actually include such AI-based or GIS-based evaluations assessments. But we would like to know actually what are the preconditions required, like we cannot be done on normal laptops or systems. So are there some preconditions so that it doesn't slow down? What are the various models which can be used? Once we get the data, first downloading such data is time consuming. Then what are the machine learning models which we can use? One is supervised machine learning, which I come to know today. So what are the other methods which we can use? We are already using the traditional methods like DID, quasi-experimental methods. But as I think that this is a supplemental way and a quick way of, and scientific way of dealing with the data, and we are in the early stages of doing this. So some insight into the nitty-gritties of how to set up such kind of systems in place so that we can do it on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abhinash. The first question I'll throw to Serdar.
Yes, thank you very much for the question on the use of GIS and the how do we, I understand, integrate this into the evaluation and promote this. Well, I think the use of geospatial data offers by itself the efficiencies, greater efficiencies as compared to traditional methods. And it's reducing the costs of evaluation as well as the time frames for the evaluation. While, as we already mentioned, maintaining the high level data that can be generated. It is important for any commissioner of evaluation to be aware of these various tools available on the market and how to promote it. It's essentially to bring this to the attention of the people responsible for, be it a national institution or international development agency. Well, I say it should be done as much as feasible, and feasible is the key word because not everywhere it can be used. It very much depends on the availability of the local expertise, the people who know what is GIS and how it can be applied. So for example, in our work on evaluation, we found that to establish the exact locations of your project sites, you need to have the GIS expertise to support you at the local level, to provide you the exact coordinates, and also support the evaluation team in understanding the boundaries and the various scopes of your evaluation. The geospatial data is great, but it's not magic wand. So we need to also to triangulate, as Professor Toshi mentioned. And again, to triangulate, you need a local level expertise and support, be it GIS or the knowledge about the context and the actual projects. Thank you. I hope it answers.
Toshi, I will hand it over to you, but also I'm going to say, Anupam, can you respond to the last question? Toshi, over to you.
Okay, thank you. It is really good question. To identify control group is really challenge to calculate attribution of the project. And to identify the control group, what is the important is hearing the variety of the voice of people, the local people, the government, and international organization, and then I identify control group. Not only similar road type and traffic volume, so those are engineering. So in addition to engineering, we need to listen to the people's voice. It is the best way to identify control group. So in addition, so there is a other way to identify control group. So I just want to share my screen. I'm not sure you can see this or not. So this is the approach. So we choose the same location, but a different time frame. Before project, and after project, we compare what is the growth rate before project and what is the growth rate of the after project. This also, potential control group. So my point is, it's not necessary to, stick to only one control group. We should identify several control groups and then, compare the result. I think that is an important approach. And in addition to the control group, we need to triangulate results. We need a triangulation with the population growth. We need to, compare with the traditional economic analysis like EIRR, and we need to look at the street view, and also we visit the field. So we need a comprehensive, analysis at this moment. We do not have, standardized methodology to identify control groups. So we need a lot of effort at this stage. This is my answer. Yeah, I hope this answer helps you. Thank you.
Thank you, Toshi. Over to you, Anupam.
Thanks, Arve. And thank Avinash for the question. We hear this all the time. So like the non-spatial data, the spatial data or the GIS data system, they also have their own database management systems. So there are metadata standards, there are standard protocols and standard tools that are used for collecting geospatial data. So PostGIS, for instance, is a good open source geospatial data management format. But I would like to revisit the notion that GIS is supplementary in several cases, and there are instances where GIS is the only way. If you're walking in a conflict situation, the only data we are getting from, say, Gaza is through the satellite data. I will go back into time and talk about one of the most effective environmental accord, that is the Montreal Protocol, that helped us deal with the ozone problem. How did we know about the problem in first place? Through the satellite data. And how did we know that the ozone hole has been plugged? Through the satellite data. Of course, you can have other sensors, but those are also remote sensors. So, like any data, like any method, we need triangulation, but I'm telling you there are opportunities where this would be the main source of information, main source of analysis, and we just need to be open to it, and we just need to learn more about it. And just to give you a little more perspective, is any intervention, what is common in any intervention is the location. Interventions happen somewhere, and that is the space. And so therefore, once we know about where the intervention has happened, that's the first step, that is mapping. Once we have the information on location, we are aware of the context, in what context the intervention is happening. And if we measure what has happened over time at the site of intervention, that is monitoring. And if we do it time and again, and if we look at what changes have happened, and we are able to link it with the intervention, that is a solid evidence for evaluation. So I think we need to be aware of spatial thinking, how space plays an important role in any intervention, and that is GIS. So GIS doesn't mean, GIS has been there before computers, before advent of modern technology. It's a way of thinking spatially, and then of course there are so many tools and that have made our work easier. So coming back to your question, there are specialized database system and protocols on how to collect geospatial data, how to manage them, and how to integrate them into decision making. And there are so many examples from government and public and both private sector. I'll stop there, but happy to discuss more on how to set up enterprise level GIS systems. And it all begins with getting the location right, and then you can look at what happened at those locations and what is the context in which your intervention is playing out.
Thank you so much, Anupam. And we'll close the session. First, I want to thank the panelists. Thank you so much for giving us your time and your perspective and spending this much in providing us your knowledge and experience on GIS. We do have some gift bags for you. The volunteers will give the gift bags. For Anupam, I'll send it to you in DC, and I'll pass by Manila, Toshi, to give it to you personally. But most of all, thank you so much for all of you who attended this session this afternoon. We hope at least that the smallest indicator for me is for us to trigger your interest in using GIS in evaluation. Once you have that interest, the how to do it is so easy. You just connect with any of us, you connect with your peers, with our colleagues here, and it's really achievable. We are all not data scientists or GIS expert here. Some of us are just plain evaluators with curiosity and interest, and it's really, really possible. So I hope we inspired that interest for you to use GIS in your evaluation. With that, can we give all ourselves a round of applause to close the day? And thank you so much. And please, we have that reception dinner. What time is it? Yeah, 5:30, between now and like 10 minutes from now or 15 minutes from now, the bus will be waiting, I think, at the lobby. So
And I would like to thank our facilitator and lead of this session, as well as the panelist Harvey Garcia, and also the organizers of this conference, and Sitka as the host, as well as the Chinese government and people. Thank you.
Can find my phone.